You know, for a long while now, I've been wanting to get into challenge running games, but I've not really been able to think of a game to play. Recently, however, I've got the urge to play some Crash Bandicoot, so I figured I'd do a challenge run in that. The first idea I had was, can you beat Crash Bandicoot without breaking any boxes? I checked online and it looks like some people have done this run before, as well as some pretty similar ones, but I decided not to watch any of their videos before starting my own run so I could figure everything out for myself. I'll be playing the Insane Trilogy version of the game on my PS5 since it's the easiest way for me to capture video. The rules for this run are pretty simple. Number 1, I'm not allowed to break any boxes, obviously. This includes by spinning them, jumping on them, or whatever. Number 2, if a box is broken by accident, I must either die to reset it, or quit and restart the level. And the last one, number 3, I must clear every mandatory level and boss in the game. This means I can't use any glitches to skip past levels or anything like that. With that being said, let's answer the question. Is it possible to beat Crash Bandicoot without breaking any boxes? The game opens up with Doctors Neo, Cortex, and Nitrous Brio using a giant raid to create mutated animal super soldiers. This obviously fails, and what they get instead is Crash, who escapes the facility. Though somehow, despite only just being created, he already has a girlfriend who's still in Cortex's clutches, so we have to go all the way back to get her. So off we go. Level 1, Insanity Beach. As expected of a tutorial level, this one's pretty easy, and all the boxes can simply be avoided by walking around them. This wall of boxes towards the end of the level did worry me a little until I realized you can just get up on the scenery to the side and walk past them. I did realize a little after this, Crash can actually jump over boxes stacked too high, meaning we can actually just jump over these boxes, but my way's more fun, so I'm sticking with that. Just after this, we come to a fork in the road. Both these paths should be possible boxless, but I chose the left as it's a little simpler. With that, Insanity Beach is complete with no boxes broken. Level 2, Jungle Rollers. This level teaches us an important lesson about enemies. See, whenever you spin an enemy, they fly off into the distance, and until they completely despawn, it's still possible for them to break boxes. In almost all cases, it's preferable to either squash or ignore enemies outright, as to not risk accidentally breaking boxes. Some of these piranha plants are located directly in front of stacks of boxes, making them especially important not to spin. The only exception in this level is the very last plant. Since he's slightly uphill from us, I wasn't able to jump on him without getting eaten. Luckily, this is right at the end of the level and there's no boxes after this, so we can safely spin him without worry. This level is pretty easy, just like the first one, until we come across this. Yeah, there's no way around this wall of boxes without breaking some. So yeah, that answers it. It's not possible to beat Crash Bandicoot without breaking any boxes. I didn't want to leave it there though, so instead of calling it quits, this is becoming a minimalist challenge, with the goal of avoiding as many boxes as physically possible. So, what's the fewest boxes we need to destroy to get past this wall? I first thought I could get through just breaking one. As I established before, Crash can jump over 2 high box stacks, but because of this low ceiling in the area, it doesn't work here. So maybe 2 boxes? Well, still no. I don't know why we can't do this, as it looks like Crash should be able to fit through, but apparently the roof is still too low. The fewest boxes I had to break to get through was 3, an entire column of this wall. This is the only real hiccup in this level, meaning we beat it with only 3 boxes broken. Level 3, the Great Gate. This is the first real difficulty spike of the run. This is mainly due to this being the first long level of the game with lots of precise platforming. This brings into light some of the main challenges of this run. You see, this game features checkpoints throughout the levels so that you don't have to replay parts you've already mastered. These checkpoints are in the form of boxes that need to be smashed open to activate. If you can't see the problem with this, then you haven't been paying attention to the rules of this run. Because of this, we have to beat each level, start to finish, without dying, and given how difficult this game can get, this is going to make things a lot more frustrating. Unfortunately, this level is another one that requires us to break boxes as well. After using the jump crates to get up to the first area, we're immediately treated with these boxes. I thought I could maybe thread the needle between the Aku Aku box and the rest of them, but when I tried this, Crash would just bonk off the Aku Aku straight down into another box. I then tried using the jump crates we used to get onto this platform to jump over all these boxes, but it didn't even come close. I eventually realized that by jumping through and spinning, I was able to get through breaking only the Aku Aku box. While it's more than I'd like, this seems to be the fewest number of boxes we need to break to get through. Not long after this, we come to this stack of boxes. Despite it looking like you should be able to just walk around them, for some reason I wasn't able to, and since we can't just jump over it, we're gonna have to break one of these boxes to get through. This little set of boxes scared me at first, but it was pretty easy to jump between them and get past. Moving up to the next area now, I make sure to either spin or jump over this turtle to avoid jumping into the Aku Aku box. Soon after, there's another stack of 3 boxes I can't get around, so I need to break one to jump over the rest. Next up, there's a box right next to the edge of this platform. I wasn't sure if one jump would be able to clear both the box and the gap to land on the other platform. So instead, I jump over the box before quickly turning around and landing on the very thin edge of the platform on the other side of the box. This is a move I'll be using a lot in this run, so I figured I'd give it a name, and the one I landed on was jump reversing. This can be pretty scary, but with a little bit of practice, they're actually pretty easy to perform. This is another box placed in the middle of a very small platform. Aim a jump perfectly to land on the platform without stomping the box, then jump reverse to the other side of the platform and continue on with the level. The rest of the level is pretty easily beaten boxless, so as long as you don't die and get sent back to the start of the level, it's cleared with 3 boxes broken, bringing us to a total of 6. While I was relieved when I finished this level, it really had me worried for what was to come next. Next up is level 4, Boulders. Luckily, this one's a lot less stressful than the last, despite being chased down by a giant boulder the entire time. All the boxes, both on the boulder track and in the little rest areas between, can be easily avoided by just walking around them. I was surprised, however, to get to the end of the level and see I had apparently broken 5 boxes along the way. I figured this could be a glitch, as this game isn't really known as the most stable in the world, so I replayed the level, but no, still 5 boxes hit. I did this time, however, figure out what was actually going on. You see, there are 5 boxes that the boulder breaks while rolling after us, and for whatever reason, these are added to our tally. I messed around a little trying to get the boulder to despawn or something, but no luck unfortunately. Some people might disagree, but I'm ruling that these boxes don't count. The rules are that I can't break any boxes, and as far as I know, the boulder isn't an eye. You might say that if I allow this, then surely enemies I spin into boxes don't count, as it's the enemy that breaks it. But that still feels like a box we're directly causing to break. If you disagree with my decision here, you're objectively wrong, but I do understand. So I'll be keeping a tally of any boxes broken like this as ghost boxes, and if you feel so inclined, you can add them to the total at the end. With that being said, we end this level adding 0 boxes and 5 ghost boxes to our total. Level 5, Upstream. This level is a breeze. All the boxes can be avoided just by easily walking around them or jumping over them. Not much to say here other than we cleared this level with 0 boxes added. Papu Papu is our first boss of the run, and there are no boxes involved in this fight, making it an easy no-box victory. Back on the overworld, before moving on to the next level, it's important to remember to change to play as Coco, as she's clearly the superior Bandicoot. Level 6, Rolling Stones. The wall of boxes at the start had me a little scared, but unlike in Jungle Rollers, these ones can be easily walked around. This is yet another level we clear without hitting any boxes. Up to level 7, Hog Wild. We're forced to play as Crash unfortunately for this level, as well as for all the boss levels. This is the first and only animal riding level we'll be doing in this run. I've noticed that the animal levels in this game feel very different to those in the later ones. In Crash 2 and 3 they feel more like standard levels, having you react to obstacles and enemies as they appear, with different runs feeling different each time, whereas in this game it feels more like trial and error, just figuring out the one and only path that'll get you to the end of the level alive. Thankfully, that path doesn't require us to hit any boxes, with all of them being able to be dodged or jumped around. I did have a bit of trouble with these boxes here. When I tried to weave between them, I'd always end up hitting the second box, and jumping over it would cause me to land on the spikes. I eventually got past it by riding to the left and jumping, which does work for some reason. I don't know if my jump was just better than it had been before, but I swear I jumped closer to the spikes and still landed on them before, but whatever, if it works, it works. After that, the rest of the level is no more difficult than a standard run, adding another boxless level to our belt. Level 8 is Native Fortress, and the string of easy levels are coming to an end. Native Fortress is the second side-scrolling level and the new hardest level so far. It's really long with lots of difficult platforming, and one slip-up can send you all the way back to the start. Bouncing up to the first area of the level, and this part's pretty easy. There aren't many boxes and they're all avoidable. This is one of the few spots I'd actually recommend spinning enemies, since, from my experience, they can't hit any of the boxes in this area. Since spinning is the fastest way to deal with enemies and you'll be coming through this area a lot, you'll want to be getting through it pretty quick. Using the box crates to get up to the next area, we enter the real start of this level. The area is full of precise platforming, spike poles shooting up and down to block your path, platforms you can't stand still on, annoying enemies, and these, I don't know, patches of red that shoot fire to burn you alive. This area killed me so many times I lost count. This is where I should probably mention something. You'll probably notice through a lot of my gameplay, I have an Aku Aku mask following me around. For those of you who are unaware, these are found throughout the levels and once collected can take 1 hit of damage for you, and they can be stacked up to 3 times, with the third granting temporary invincibility. While some of these can be found just laying around in levels, most of the time you can only get them by breaking Aku Aku boxes, making them impossible to collect in this run. However, there is one other way of getting these. By dying over and over again between checkpoints, the game will eventually take pity on you and gift you one of these masks. Continue to suck and it will be upgraded to a 2-hit Aku Aku. Originally I was planning to disallow these pity masks for the run, meaning if I ever was given one, I'd have to get rid of it by taking damage on some easy enemy or obstacle. However, on further consideration, I decided to allow them as I don't feel like they really affect the core idea of this run. Look, I can get past all of these obstacles individually, so dying to some random enemy halfway through a level I've gotten past 30 times before, forcing me to restart, kinda just feels unfair, and will only make me more frustrated and more likely to give up the challenge. Plus, most of my deaths in this run are from mistiming or aiming jumps, and falling to my death, which Aku Aku doesn't protect from, so it's not like using them makes this run a cakewalk anyway. I'll also add though that I won't be using these in any cheese tactics to avoid boxes, for example by damage boosting off enemies to get over 3 high stacks. Basically, if a box is only avoidable by abusing one of these pity Aku Akus, then it's not actually avoidable. With that being said, let's get back to Native Fortress. Our first real annoyance of this level is this enemy here. When you jump onto the platform, they walk towards you, and if they make contact, they'll bounce you way back. Usually you deal with these by jumping over them, causing them to aim their shield up so you can land next to them and spin them away. However, in this case there's a box directly above where they walk, meaning if we try that, we're liable to smash straight into it. By standing on the far left side of the platform, I can start them walking over to me, and once they're clear of the box, I'm free to deal with them normally. If you don't die to any of the obstacles, you'll arrive at this massive stack of boxes sitting on top of a TNT. At first, I thought we'd have to destroy every box here to get past, however, I was able to save at least a little collateral damage. I jump and spin the box between the TNT and the metal crate, causing the rest of the stack to fall and starting the TNT countdown. I jump over to the angled platform and wait for the TNT to explode before I jump back. The explosion takes out another one of the boxes on top, leaving me with a stack of 3. I break one more box, giving me the space to jump over and continue on. On to the next area now, and if you had trouble with the last one, then I have bad news for you, cause this one's even worse, and the knowledge that one slip up could send you all the way back to the start really doesn't help. Luckily, most of the boxes here are easy to avoid. This one here is a little challenging as we don't have much room to land on the platform without breaking it. Making this even more difficult is the fact that we have to make this jump off one of those aforementioned patches of red. These are essentially bounce pads, meaning you have a lot less control over your jump than normal. On top of that, as I said before, these patches spit fire at you after a while, so I don't have much time to stop and get my bearings either. After a few attempts, I do manage to get it. I then jump reverse to the other side before continuing on. These 3 red patches got me quite a few times, as the fire would always start back up and kill me before I reached the end. I found by jumping towards them about halfway through their burning phase, I was able to make it past without getting torched. Right at the end now, but not fully out of harm's way, as there are boxes hanging in the air above these bounce crates. When bouncing off the second one, I don't move to the right at all to avoid the stack of boxes over there, and off the last one, I move as quickly as possible to the right to land on the platform without bonking off any of the boxes directly above me. And with that, this level is finally done, and geez, this one was exhausting. Towards the end, I was physically shaking. I was so worried I might screw up and get sent back to the beginning. Unfortunately though, this has been the most costly level yet, adding a total of 5 boxes to our kill count. I also came across something I didn't expect in this run. After many failed attempts, I went to go grab a quick snack and left the game running at the start of the level. After a little bit, Coco did her idle animation where she pulls out her phone and, well... yeah, needless to say, when I came back to 2 boxes broken, I was very confused. So I should keep this in mind, that if I need to go AFK in the middle of a good run, to do it as far away from any boxes as I can. Level 9, Up the Creek. Over to the next island of the game now, and after the gauntlet that was Native Fortress, a nice relaxing time by the creek sounds like just what I need. There are a lot of boxes sitting on platforms just barely bigger than them, but in all these cases we're able to jump onto the edge of the platform and just walk around the box. Just like the previous river level, this is another easy boxless clear. Next up is another boss stage with Ripperoo. He jumps from platform to platform in a certain pattern as big TNT float down the stream. We start their timers by jumping on them, with the goal being to have them explode while Ripperoo is on an adjacent platform. I debated with myself for a while whether or not to count these big TNT as boxes in this run, since they're so different from all other boxes. For one, they aren't seen anywhere else other than in this boss fight. For two, all other boxes and levels are finite, whereas these ones spawn infinitely. And for three, while other boxes are essentially collectibles, or at least award you collectibles, these ones are just used for damaging the boss. In the end though, no matter what semantic games I play in my head to get around it, these are still boxes, no matter how different they might be, and we're still causing them to break. I found the easiest way to consistently hit Ripperoo was by jumping on a big TNT as he was leaving an adjacent platform. By the time it was blowing up, he was usually back to the platform again, or it was at least within the blast radius. The boss has 3 health segments, and since I don't know any trick to hit him multiple times with one big TNT, Ripperoo dies in 3 exploded boxes. Level 10, The Lost City. This one had me super worried as it's yet another side-scrolling level. After what I just went through with Native Fortress, I wasn't ready for another one of these, but this one actually wasn't too bad. I found all the enemies, obstacles, and timed platforms a lot less frustrating and a lot more fun and challenging to get around. This is another level where completing a boxless doesn't really add anything to it besides the lack of checkpoints making deaths hit a lot harder. Most of the boxes in this level are in these little nooks off the beaten path and can easily be ignored, and for those that are in your way, they can all be easily jumped over. Or just walked around? Yeah, despite not being able to walk around the boxes in the Great Gate and Native Fortress, here you can. The only real helpful trick I found is to try and keep your mind on where the boxes are below you in the parts where you're moving up using timed platforms, as if you fall down and are careless, you can easily land on one, forcing you to restart. But with that, we're able to beat the Lost City with 0 boxes broken. On to level 11, Temple Ruins. Really don't have much to say about this level as, again, for the most part, the boxes stay out of your way, and those that don't are easily walked around. Some of the jumps are made a little harder, I guess, due to there being boxes there that would usually be broken, now obscuring your vision. But other than that, if you can beat this level normally, you can beat it with no boxes. Level 12, Road to Nowhere. Our first bridge level. I feel like these levels are some of, if not the most frustrating in the game if you play them normally. I had thought to use the cheese strat of getting up on the rope and walking the entire way across, avoiding all the hard jumps, but I suck at that almost as much as I do completing it normally, and doing it normally is much faster, meaning I can crank out more attempts, so I decided to just ignore the cheese. Luckily, there are no boxes on the bridge sections themselves, as that would make this level a lot harder. Jumping around this wall of boxes rather than breaking it does make it very hard to see the bridge, and if I walk straight forward, I'll fall down a gap, but I quickly figure out exactly where the gap was and when to jump to get over it. You can't walk past this one-up box here, so I had to jump reverse onto the platform on the other side, then quickly jump off before it crumbled. This level still took me almost an hour of attempts, but that was just because of the hard as hell platforming, and not because of any hard to avoid boxes, making the road to nowhere a road to no boxes. Level 13, Boulder Dash, is the second boulder chase level, and just like the first, I'm able to avoid all of the boxes with very little effort. The boulder, unfortunately, isn't as agile as me, and ends up crashing through 7 boxes, meaning our total is now at 14 boxes and 12 ghost boxes broken. On to level 14, Sunset Vista. This is a harder and longer version of Temple Ruins. The same rule applies about keeping note of where boxes are below you in the sections you move up, so you don't break them if you fall down. I also wait and watch the timing and patterns of all these pushing blocks and make sure I'm certain before I risk moving through them. There's a series of small platforms with boxes on them requiring me to make some pretty tight jumps to avoid crushing them, but I'm used to this sort of thing at this point and get through it first try. While this is another hard level, it's another easy boxless victory. Koala Kong is our next opponent. He throws small boulders at me that I need to dodge before throwing a larger one that can be spun back at him. Making this more difficult is the TNT boxes falling from the sky with the countdown already started, making some areas unsafe to stand. Now, much like the boxes in the boulder levels, these to me feel more like boxes being broken by the game, as I have no control over causing them to explode or not. So again, I'm gonna count these as ghost boxes. A perfect run of Koala Kong breaks 8 ghost boxes, bringing our total to 14 boxes and 20 ghost boxes broken. With Koala Kong's tight little butt kicked, we move on to our final island of the game. Level 15, Heavy Machinery. This is yet another side-scrolling level, and back to not being able to walk around boxes. I had originally thought that we would have to break a box here to get over this stack, however I actually figured out a way around it. By jumping on the glowing orange pipe just in front of this stack with an Aku Aku, we can tank the damage, then use our iframes to stand on the pipe and use the extra height to clear all 3 boxes. Now you might say, but Katie, didn't you say you wouldn't be using pity Aku Akus the game gives you to cheese past boxes? Well, yeah, you're right. Luckily, this isn't a pity Aku Aku. Right before this is a bounce crate with an unboxed Aku Aku above it. Since the game intends for us to have a mask here, there's nothing in the rules against using it in this way. Since I already have a double mask from dying so much, I intentionally take some damage to lose one before picking this one up so I don't enter the invincibility state and immediately break the bouncing box. I then jump over this stack and move on with the rest of the level. Down the path a bit we come across this. I can thread the needle between these boxes easily enough, but I then have to jump reverse to get onto the other side of this box. Since the conveyor belt platform is constantly moving me back, this is a little harder but still doable. The problem comes with this enemy here, as it can hit us if we stand right on the edge. I tried timing it so I could land on the edge then quickly jump off without hitting the enemy, but I was really struggling. I was worried I might have to break a box here in order to get past, but after a good few tries I was able to thread the needle perfectly and prove it was possible. Full disclosure here, I was only able to do this a few times, and in my successful run I just tanked the damage with an Aku Aku since I did know it was at least possible to do. When I jump off this platform to the lower area, I'm sure to jump far enough to avoid the checkpoint box. When I come to this first bounce platform, I jump over it as there are boxes above. This floating box here is slightly annoying, but it's pretty easy to avoid bonking off it. At the series of bounce platforms right at the end, I always use the bounce platforms in the middle or right, since some of the ones on the left have boxes above them. I also make sure to jump off and to the left quickly on the second last bounce pad to avoid more boxes. Aside from a couple jump reverses onto thin platforms, that's pretty much it, making for a well-earned 0 boxes. Level 16, Cortex Power. This level's always confused me with all the different paths you can take through it, but after this run, I think I finally got it mapped out in my head, because despite not going for all the boxes here, I'm not going to be making a straight shot for the end. When the path splits, I follow it to the right and continue along until I come to the second fork, where I also go to the right and up the stairs. This brings us to a small room where Pinstripe will shoot at us. I use the pillar as cover, moving closer when he stops firing. Once I get an opportunity, I run towards him and spin him away from his left side so he doesn't go flying into these boxes next to him. The timing here is a little tight, so I have to be very quick. Once he's dealt with, go over and spin the switch box. While these are boxes, spinning them doesn't break them and just turns them into regular metal crates, so there's no rules against spinning them. I then go back down to the second fork and take the left path instead. This switch will make some boxes at the end of the level materialize across this toxic pool, which would usually allow us to break them to get the gem. However, if we don't hit this switch, then all I get are these 2 boxes in the middle of the pool, requiring me to jump on and break at least one of them to get across. With the full bridge here, however, I can just walk across, as walking on boxes doesn't break them like jumping does. There are some narrow jumps onto small platforms with boxes on them, but as long as you can get past all of these Tesla shock things, this is another easy no box level. Level 17, Generator Room. This level plays a lot like the Lost City, and just like the Lost City, I don't really have much to say about it. That is until I come across this wall of boxes here, which completely blocks our path. I at first thought this was an indoor area, just like in Jungle Rollers. In fact, you can see this area earlier in the level, and it definitely is, so I prepared myself to have to break 3 boxes just like in that level. Fortunately though, the ceiling is a lot higher here, meaning we can actually get through with just 1 box broken, bringing us to a total of 15 boxes overall. Level 18 Toxic Waste might be the easiest no box level so far, as it's just a short straight line with like 99% of the boxes being just off the path, meaning you'd have to go out of your way to hit them. Just because the level's an easy 0 boxes though doesn't make it an easy level, since dodging these barrels with this camera angle can be pretty hard, and when they start bouncing, good luck figuring out how to get under them consistently. But with a few good attempts, this is another 0 boxes in the bag. Another boss up next with Pinstripe, and fortunately he has no boxes involved in his fight, so if I do somehow manage to break one, that's actually kind of impressive. On to level 19, the High Road, and this is another bridge level, like Road to Nowhere. This box wall at the start is the only one that's kind of hard to avoid. A lot of the time I ended up jumping off the edge while trying to jump around them, but if you're just a little careful, it's more than possible. Given how much trouble the last bridge level gave me, I decided to go for the cheese strat this time of getting up on the rope and just walking past all the intended platforming. As I mentioned before, I usually suck at this just as much as I do going through the level normally, but with some practice I was able to get up on the rope and walk along it for quite some distance. I found the best way to do this was by lining Coco up so that the heel of her right foot was just barely on the rope, and using the D-pad gave me pretty consistent results. Mostly pretty consistent results. Jumping over the pillars was always a gamble, but with enough tries, the gamble will pay off and you'll clear this level with 0 boxes destroyed. Level 20, Slippery Climb. This one had me very nervous going into it, since it's often billed as the hardest level in the main game. Somehow though, it really didn't give me any trouble, as once again, almost all of the boxes you have to go out of your way to hit here. Sure, the platforming here is hard as nails, and as always, one slip up sends me back to the start, but maybe it's all the practice I've had with this game at this point, but I'm able to finish Slippery Climb with no boxes in just a handful of attempts. Next up, level 21, Lights Out. This was a fun one, and surprisingly I'm not actually being sarcastic. The gimmick here is that the stage is incredibly dark, making platforms and pits nearly impossible to see. I'd usually have to crack open these Aku crates, which in this level, on top of giving me a 1 free hit, also briefly light up the stage, letting me see where I'm jumping. I went into this level expecting to have to break at least some of these to get through, but out of curiosity I gave it a few tries in the dark. The first thing I noticed is that you can actually just barely make out where the next platform is if you look really hard. I turned up the brightness on my TV a bit, but don't know if that actually helped at all. I mustered up the courage and started jumping, and after a couple of tries, I actually made it to the second Aku box. All I needed to do was short, consistent jumps, and this part was actually pretty easy. I won't go into every exact movement here as that would take way too long, but I will give you some tips to help you if you try doing this yourself, and show my full run in the background to give you an idea of the movements. Number 1, for the most part, you'll want to do short jumps as to not overshoot platforms. There are a few gaps you'll need bigger jumps to get across, but for the most part, small ones are the way to go. Number 2, stay as close to the center of the screen as possible. While most platforms cover the entire width of the room, moving and crumbling ones don't, meaning it's possible to miss your jump by landing too far to the left or right. To avoid this, either stay in the center of the screen when you jump, or make sure that your jump is aimed to land in the center. Number 3, players crash. Despite Coco being the superior Bandicoot in almost every way, her fabulous hair unfortunately takes up a lot of screen space and can obscure the already hard to see platforms, so for this particular level, Crash is my go-to guy. Number 4, when jumping onto moving platforms, position yourself either to the left or right before jumping. This way you're not obscuring the screen as much, giving you the best view of what the platform is doing and when you should jump. Number 5, use a guide playing through this level normally with lights on. I only used a guide towards the end when the swinging traps got involved, but if I'd been using one from the start, it probably would have taken me half the attempts to actually get it. Though doing it without a guide for the most part does make it more satisfying to get through, so I guess each to their own. If there's any level I recommend doing boxless, it's this one, as the feeling of satisfaction I got slowly finding a path through the darkness was easily the best thing I experienced in this run. On to level 22, Jaws of Darkness. I forgot to swap back to Coco, so it's Crash again for this level. This is another level in the playstyle of Generator Room and Temple Ruins, and just like those two, I don't have much to say here. With careful platforming, it's no problem avoiding all the boxes. Watch Crash get severe brain damage from all the boxes dropping on him, and move on with 0 added to our total. Level 23, Castle Machinery, took me a good while to beat. I of course tried jumping straight over to the end platform, but alas, this isn't possible, at least with my knowledge of the game. When I dropped down at this part here, I made sure to stick to the left part of the wall as to not land on the checkpoint crate at the bottom, forcing me to restart. My next obstacle though is unfortunately unavoidable. There's this bridge of boxes that we need to jump across to get to the other side. If there weren't these gaps here, we would be able to walk over these boxes and not break them, but as it stands, the fewest boxes I had to break to get over this bridge was 2. Everything else in this level though can be worked around, meaning we leave this level with a total of 17 boxes. Time to take on one of our creators now, Nitrous Brio, and this box has no boxes of any kind involved in his fight, so we can just move past him. Now that Brio's defeated, I'm moving on to the last couple of levels. Despite the levels getting much more challenging, I haven't really had many issues with boxes in the second half of the game, having only broken 3 since the second boss. So let's see if the last few levels can offer any real challenge. Level 24, the lab, is full of these metal switch crates which we have to spin in order to temporarily open doors and activate bridges. Some of these sit in the middle of these piled up boxes. I thought I'd have to break at least one to get to the switch inside, but it turns out there are actually no boxes covering up the far side, meaning you can activate it from behind without breaking anything. I ignored and jumped around this scientist throwing vials, as if I spun him away he would always either hit the checkpoint next to him or the pile of TNT crates behind this door. He can still throw bottles at you even when you're past him, so I had to be aware of that. Once again, there are no boxes covering up the far side of the switch crates under these TNTs, so spin it to open the door. Right before the level exit, there's a bridge of TNT crates which can be easily avoided by jumping into the little nook to the side and then jumping to the end of the level. Once again, another level with 0 boxes cleared. Level 25, the Great Hall, is the last level of the game, and possibly our toughest challenge yet, but I somehow managed to get through unscathed. With that done, it's time for our final epic showdown with our creator himself, Dr. Neo Cortex, who, unfortunately for him, left all of his boxes at home. With Cortex defeated and Torna saved, we can definitively say without a shadow of a doubt that it is entirely not possible to beat Crash Bandicoot without hitting any boxes. But you can manage it while only breaking 17, unless you include the ghost boxes and boulder levels and Koala Kong's fight, in which case it's more like 37. Despite hitting a fair handful of boxes, I'm actually pretty proud of this number, considering I managed to beat most levels without destroying a single box at all. I do still feel like there's possibly some room for improvement though. I'm still almost certain that with a perfect jump we can beat Jungle Rollers with only 2 boxes broken instead of 3, and it might be possible to jump around this stack in Generator Room. I also vaguely remember this little trick where you can spin at the last second to land on top of boxes from the PS1 game, which would get us over this bridge in the lab without breaking any boxes, but I couldn't get it to work, so either it's not possible in the Insane trilogy, or I just suck. If you can make any of these skips work or have any ideas for others, feel free to leave them in the comments section, and please, if you wouldn't mind liking and subscribing if you enjoyed, as I'd like to do more challenge runs in the future, namely doing Crash 2 and 3 boxless and some other non-Crash related ones. So I guess until next time, I'm Katie, and thank you for watching. Broken, bringing us to a total of 16?